So did you know that Jamaica had a hammer thrower who qualified for the Paris Olympics, 2024 Olympics? And if so, how come she's not in Paris representing Jamaica? Stay tuned. I'm going to tell you what happened and why I'm saying the JAAA has questions to answer. I'm Dion Jackson Miller. Thank you so much for joining me courtside. So seriously, for real, did you know that Jamaica had a hammer thrower and that she reached the qualifying standard to compete in the Paris Olympics and yet she's not there? So how come? Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you what happened, what the Court of Arbitration for Sport said in this matter, and what are the questions I'm saying the JAAA has to answer here. So feel free to drop any additional questions you have that you want answered. Don't say I can answer them, but drop your questions in the comments below. And also remember, like and subscribe, all right? Now, Nayoka Clunis is Jamaica's record holder in the hammer throw, in the women's hammer throw. She threw 71.83 meters at the USA Track and Field Throws Festival at the University of Arizona. That was in May 2024. Clunis represented Jamaica last year at the World Championships in Budapest. She broke the previous national record of 71.48 meters that had been set by Dana Levy in 2016. Now, Miss Clunis ranked 23rd in the world and she qualified for the Paris Olympics, so she should have been there. Yet instead, she's been in court fighting to get to Paris. So I'll tell you what happened based on the chronology that was set out in the tribunal ruling. I'll tell you more about the tribunal in just a moment. 2022, that's 18 months ago, World Athletics published its qualification system for the Paris Olympic Games. Then on the 19th of June 2024, the World Athletic Competition Department held an information session for member federations, meaning for federations like the JAAA. JAAA, of course, means Jamaica Athletics Administrative Association. 2nd of July 2024, World Athletics confirmed the list of athletes qualified by entry standard and by world rankings. Now, Miss Clunis was ranked 23rd in the world, so she was qualified based on her world ranking position. Now, in that communication, World Athletics reminded member federations to submit their pre-entries with a deadline of the 4th of July 2024, midnight Monaco time. That communication said that athletes who were not included in the event entry system would not be considered for the Paris Olympic Games. And it also said that by submitting the pre-entries, member federations, that would allow the World Athletics to know who was going to be competing in which event. So therefore, any spaces that were left because athletes weren't going to compete, they could give away those spaces to other athletes, again, based on rankings. So on the 3rd of July now, JAAA told Miss Clunis she had qualified for the Olympics based on her world ranking. Yay! Celebration! On the 4th of July, JAAA apparently at that point submitted its list to the World Athletics, except Miss Clunis's name was not on the list. So on July 5, these people don't lay, World Athletics gave away any spaces that had not been taken up. And Miss Clunis's space was given away to a Ukrainian athlete. On July 6, JAAA wrote to World Athletics saying, hold on, we made a mistake. Can you please include Miss Clunis? July 7, Miss Clunis's coach told her she wasn't on the list. She reached out to JAAA and the General Secretary responded and said this. The General Secretary said she was aware that Miss Clunis's name had been inadvertently left off the list of athletes ratified by World Athletics for the hammer throw event. As is usual, all athletes selected by the JAAA are entered into the World Athletics entry system as soon as the team is selected days before the final deadline. The list submitted, the General Secretary said, is rechecked before the deadline for changes. Unfortunately, due to the intervention of Hurricane Beryl and its impact on electricity and the internet, we were unable to recheck the list. When we were able to do this, we realized the omission and we have written to World Athletics about the situation. They're in discussion about the matter and we expect a decision soon. So then you had some back and forth between the JAAs and World Athletics. Basically, JAAs was saying, hey, we made a mistake, please include her on the list. World Athletics was saying, sorry, space has already been given up. If it is that anybody drops out, she can get a space. If not, no, can't help you. So then on July 18, Ms. Clunis filed an application with the Ad Hoc Tribunal of the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Now, the Court of Arbitration for Sport was set up in 1983, and basically it's a specialist tribunal to resolve disputes related to sports. The Court of Arbitration for Sport, and it's called CAS, people call it CAS for short. Now, that has what are called ad hoc tribunals, which are set up around specific sporting events. So, for instance, at all the Summer Olympics, at all the Winter Olympics, you'll have an ad hoc tribunal set up, which only deals with disputes arising from in relation to that particular event, and it's only operational for a certain number of days before and after the particular event. And the words ad hoc just mean as necessary or as needed. So in relation to the ad hoc committee that had been set up around the Summer Olympics, Ms. Clunis's lawyers appeared, they filed submissions, they made their arguments. Now the JAAA appeared, they didn't file submissions, they acknowledged that they had made a mistake and that is why Ms. Clunis's name had been left off, and they said they were asking for World Athletics to include her so she would be able to compete in Paris. The problem Ms. Clunis ran into, though, is the issue of time. And what happened is that based on the time that the dispute arose, according to the rules that set up the ad hoc tribunal, they didn't have jurisdiction, meaning they didn't have the power or the authority to make a decision based on the time at which that took place. So this is what the tribunal said in its ruling. They said it's apparent that the dispute between the athlete and the JAAs could be said to have arisen on the 4th of July, when the athlete's name was omitted from the list sent to World Athletics, or on the 7th of July, when the athlete was informed by the JAAs that her name was not on the list sent to World Athletics by the JAAs, or on the 8th of July, when World Athletics informed the JAAs that the athlete's name could not be added to the list of competitors. They said it's clear that all of these dates are beyond the time limit required for the panel of the ad hoc division for the Paris Olympic Games to have jurisdiction. And they went on to say the panel fully recognizes and appreciates the unfairness to the athlete of the events that have occurred and of the impact on her of being deprived of the opportunity to compete in the Paris Olympic Games. They said, unfortunately, this does not enable the panel to assume jurisdiction where it does not exist under the arbitration rules for the Olympic Games. Ay, that's rough. Now, the JAAs then put out a statement saying they were saddened by the decision. All right, I don't know if I want to cause this, right? Jamaica's athletic team manager, Ludlow Watts, spoke to Jordan Fort of TVJ Sports, and when asked about the Clunis issue, this is what he said. He said it's being addressed at the moment. We actually spoke with the team in a team meeting last night, so I think everybody is satisfied that we're doing all that is necessary to make things the best they can be. Really? Who is satisfied? Because I don't think Miss Clunis is satisfied. She posted a series of pretty heartbreaking posts on X, and these were some of them. She said, meet days in 13 days. I shouldn't be dealing with none of this when I did everything I should have to ensure my participation. She thanked her lawyers. She said, I would like to thank Emir Crown and Saeed Bernard for all their help in this matter. I know it's not the resolution I'd like to hear, but thanks for taking a chance on the kid. She gave some indication how bad she was feeling about the whole thing when she said, "People, I'm in a vulnerable state with my emotions, so please read with understanding. Mr. Crown and Bernard did my case to CAS ad hoc tribunal pro bono, meaning free. Grateful. Moving forward with regular CAS, that will not be the case." And then in another post she said, "I just want to compete," and that one had a crying emoji. Now, Miss Clunis set up a GoFundMe to help pay for her legal expenses, but up to the time of the publication of this video, she had just raised about $3,600 of the $15,000 target that she wanted, and that was to help with her legal expenses to try to go to CAS. Since the tribunal had said they didn't have jurisdiction, she wanted to go to CAS, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, to see if they could help her. So, no, she doesn't sound satisfied to me, and neither does her lawyer, Dr. Emir Crown, because he posted this on X. He said, "A gentle reminder that the J3A's explanation for omitting Nayoka Clunis' name and Nayoka Clunis' name alone was Hurricane Beryl. That's right, Hurricane Beryl. Has no one interrogated that excuse?" Well, I do have a few questions. So here are my questions. Number one, when you look at the timeline, the information session with the member federations was held on June 19. So you had information from then. Then on July 2, that was when World Athletics reminded member federations to submit their pre-entries, and the deadline, remember, was July 4, midnight Monaco time. Here's the thing. On July 2, we already knew that Hurricane Beryl was likely to hit us. And we all know a hurricane can mean no light, no internet. So there couldn't have been anything more important that J3A's was doing at that time other than to get that list in. So the list never ready on July 2. So okay, July 3 now. Beryl brushes Jamaica, devastating a lot of the south coast, and then Beryl starts to move away. On July 4, some of the people, at least in Kingston, were already starting to get back light. So when exactly did J3A submit the list? We don't know. This is what the tribunal said in their ruling. They said there is no direct evidence of exactly when the J3A submitted its list, but it's not in dispute that it was submitted by the deadline. The list did not include the name of the athlete. So if the J3As knew that a hurricane was coming, and as I said, we all knew that, and they also knew that the deadline was coming upon them to submit this list, why wouldn't they have done the list, double-checked it, triple-checked it, done every single thing they needed to do, and sent it in to make sure it got in ahead of the time when the hurricane was supposed to hit us? That makes no sense to me. Also, let's look at what happened now after the hurricane, because Beryl hit, as I said, on July 3rd. On July 4, people in Kingston had already started to get back light. So I don't know if light was at the office of J3A, but I know there were places in Kingston with light. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that anybody would have said to J3A, yes, you can use our offices to sort out the Jamaican Olympic team. Anybody want to disagree with me on that? Tell me. You know, when people say you had one job, J3As, you had one job. So some other questions. You think we're ever going to hear properly what happened here? Because it still doesn't feel to me like we're hearing everything. Also, is anybody being held accountable for what has happened here to Miss Clunis? Do y'all have any idea how much trauma you've caused her? I mean, I hear we're very saddened and, we're in dialogue and so on. But really and truly, we don't really understand what has happened here and what has happened to her. And then, by the way, I'd like to hear, why is it she had to reach out to you when she heard she wasn't on the list? Me not get that. So I'm really sorry that the court couldn't give Miss Clunis what she wanted, but the truth is that when a court or when a tribunal in this case, according to its own rules, doesn't have jurisdiction, doesn't have the authority or the power to act, there's absolutely nothing that can be done. I know she must be hurt. I know she must be really, really disappointed, and I hope this doesn't affect her too much going forward. I personally love to see when we have athletes in some of these non-traditional events, non-traditional for us in Jamaica, and I really would have loved seeing her in Paris. So hopefully we will get to see her in competition lots and lots of times going forward. I wish her all the very, very best. Have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me courtside. I'm Dion. See you next time.